for like having this nuanced opinion. Oh, we're going to take the centrist opinion and be nuanced. Nah. And I know that you don't like the word nuance. I was told that by a goddamn centrist. They are the most condescending fucks on the face of the planet, and I cannot stand it. Okay, so a YouTube viewer of mine who will rename nameless because they are a fan of mine decided that he does not like, or rather they, I don't know their pronouns, do not like the ACAB line, all cops are bastards. They don't like that. I can understand that if you're coming from like a liberal mindset, it's like, well, you know, not all cops are bad guys. They're not all bad people. That's true. You can be a police officer and not be a bad person out of uniform. Once you put the uniform on, you represent the arm of the state. The long dick of the law, as it were, okay? That's what the blue represents. That's the thin blue line, as it were. He linked a video to me from a guy named Iraq Veteran 8888 called ACAB versus thin blue line. And he said, this explains my point of view much more eloquently than I could. And so I decided, okay, we'll take a look at it. We'll see what we think. We'll decide if it's cringe or I'm trying to think of a rhyming word I can't. We'll decide if it's good or not. Let's take a look.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. All right, wanted to make a quick little video, and this is kind of a thought experiment. And I want to kind of lay something out here that I think maybe some people take out of context, or maybe they don't understand, or perhaps people that try to discuss this particular subject fail to articulate their points in a meaningful way that provides some context to what they're trying to accomplish. And what I mean by that is, you look at this movement going around, you see that the ACAB, all cops are bastards, right? And then on the other end, you see the thin blue line where, you know, people are going to support law enforcement no matter what. So there's two extremely different and very
centrist take. I like it already.
Varied schools of thought. One group of people who hate law enforcement, another group of people who worship the ground that law enforcement walks on.
Okay, these are the most outspoken groups, but there's also the liberals that are like, well, you know, you can recognize that there's bad cops. Of course there's bad cops and they do bad things. But there's also good cops. They're good cops that do good things. The cops are not all bad people. They're not all bad guys. I'm sorry. Once you put the uniform on, you're a fucking bastard, okay? It's just the way the world works. I'm the moderate. Oh, gotcha.
And I think if we're going to be logically consistent with ourselves,
we'll see if we can turn you.
The thought process for what a lot of these folks are going through when they come up with these ideas, you know, I believe that there's a middle ground there where some true nuance really lies in the situation. So, you know, I've always been the kind of person, and no matter what you believe, if you're in the ACAB group or the thin blue line group, right, everyone's going to have their strong thoughts on what they believe. But what I've always generally believed is that every person should be judged individually by the merits and flaws of their character, right?
That is only true insofar as when they're out of uniform. As I've already said, police officers, when they put on the uniform, represent the long dick of the law, and they are there to protect capital and the rich. They do not give a fuck about the people.
And if any of you guys have ever served in the military, or
even if they think they do, the system does not.
Federal capacity or whatever it may be, you understand what I'm talking about, right? Like every platoon has got that.
The state should have an ability to have keepers of order. I'm not saying that I don't think we should have a peacekeeping group, okay? But the way that the current peacekeeping group is set up, the cops, right, the police force, is one, like I said, of benefiting the capital and the capital owners. Okay, they preserve the status quo. They serve their betters, our betters, really, and they're not here to protect you and me. Okay, just look at everything that's happened this year between the Uvalde shooting, not even just this year, the police violence against black people. Sorry, my brain's a little fried right now. You know, statistically speaking, like cops kill way more people than cops are killed in the line of duty, and that just should not be the case. That should never be the case. That's ridiculous. So, you know, I don't like this idea that, like, I understand the need for a peacekeeping group. The issue is the one that currently exists is not here for us. But you wouldn't oppose a police force in a socialist situation like in, say, Cuba or the Soviet Union? Okay, so Soviet Union and Cuba are not socialist, okay? A socialist society, the way that current socialists want it, has not existed, okay? The way that I would structure the police force is to have it mostly composed of, I can't think of it right now, hold on, social workers that are unarmed, that are trained to de-escalate, and only have a few highly trained individuals who are armed and who only go into severely bad situations, right? That's what I believe. I think that would be a good police force, people that uphold laws that exist to protect citizens. That's the thing, right? As long as laws protect capitalists and the status quo, all cops are bastards. That's the big thing.
One guy, you know, that, or maybe a few guys, or in some really ate up cases, maybe several guys that are very ate up. Okay. And look, is that to say that because you call that one person out in your platoon who's screwing up, that could potentially cause you and all of your comrades potentially harm in a dangerous situation if you don't straighten them out? Does that say that you are anti-soldier just because?
Like, for instance, the other day, I saw a dude who was a security officer in the gas station with a gun. Like, he wasn't there protecting the gas station even. He was just there buying a soda. There's no need for that. You don't need to have a pistol on hand ready to fire while you're buying a fucking soda at the gas station. That's ridiculous.
You know, reach out to another soldier and say, hey, you're screwing up. You're doing the wrong thing. No, that's positive reinforcement, right? You're not getting on to another person in your platoon because you're trying to be a jerk to them. No, you're getting on to them to make them a better person so that...
That's not positive reinforcement. That's positive punishment. When you say to somebody, like, I'm nitpicking, I guess, but I am going to pin him down on these definitions because I disagree with them. It's not positive positive reinforcement. When you say something negative to somebody like that, technically it's positive punishment.
They are better. They grow, but then they also don't get you killed in some screwed up process, right? So...
Really, more accurately, it's constructive criticism.
You know, I've got many friends of mine who are police officers, but I know them individually as people to be good people, right? And is that to say that you can apply a blanket standard of, well, all cops are bastards versus, well, my thin blue line? You wouldn't do that in any other...
Once again, you can be an individually good person. My brother-in-law has a brother, so we're like very loosely related, not really, who was a cop. You know, and we talked before and we got along and it was fine. We didn't talk any politics or nothing. He's a fine guy, but he's a cop. And when he puts on that uniform, he's a bastard, okay? And even his brother believes that.
Aspect of society, would you? Would you automatically say that just because someone's a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or a crossing guard or whatever, that they're automatically, that's it, they're automatic?
No, because teachers, crossing guards, doctors, etc. are not here to preserve the status quo in the way the police officers are. Police officers are dogs of the state, okay?
Awesome, good people that you could trust your life to, right? My pediatrician growing up murdered his wife and hid her body in the crawl space under his house, right?
Okay.
Now, when I was at his clinic getting looked at as a young man, he was my pediatrician. Nicest guy you'd ever meet. Played, you know, jazz keyboard, real well-spoken, just a really wonderful guy. You never think, oh, well, he's a doctor. He'd never harm anybody. But you don't know what demons...
Wait, this proves my point. This proves my point. He's contradicting himself. He's like, well, I know police officers and they're really good people, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can act like a good person out of uniform, but once you put it on, fuck you, you're a bastard. Yeah, this proves my point, dude. Am I going crazy?
People are struggling with in their life, okay? You know, he reached the point of no return. The point where...
Interpretation of what they're... No, not even interpretation. A literal line of what they are taught is your job is to get home at the end of the day. All right? That's their first priority, is to get home at the end of the day alive. If that's your first priority as a protector of the public, you are not a protector of the public, you are a protector of yourself. Police officers are literally taught to do less than the bare minimum because an average individual would sooner put their life in the line of fire than a police officer would because of the way they are trained. And that is not acceptable.
You kill your wife and put her in the crawl space of your freaking house. And then, in your brilliant doctor mind, think that you're never going to get caught, that the neighbors aren't going to smell her, which they did. I know that's a morbid story, but people are fallible. Human beings are fallible. We're capable of mistakes, right? We're capable of having a bad day, right? And sometimes that's just how life is. So to say with some blanket authority, well, all cops are bad or all cops...
Oh, man, I can't believe the guy who knelt on George Floyd's neck had such a bad day that day. It's crazy that all those police officers in Texas, the school shooting earlier this year, they were all just having a bad day, man. That's nuts. Oh, God. Remember the guy who got the hand sandy? Uvalde, thank you. The guy who got the hand sandy while he was standing there while children were, you know, dying? God, what a bad day he was having. Can you believe that he had syrup on his hands from the donut earlier? That's wild. That's wild. Poor guy.
Cops should have, you know, the ground worship that they walk on. The nuance really is in the details. You know, the uniform does not make the man and the man does not make the uniform.
40% of cops know a thing or two about caring for their wives. 40% of self-reported cops
Every person is an individual with their own individual baggage, their own individual livelihood that they're trying to, you know, what they view as their family unit, the trauma and terrible experiences that they've been through in their life, their individual training disposition, their individual position towards other sorts of people. I mean, we can say what we want all day long, but people discriminate, right? It's in human nature to have a discriminatory nature about how you know, view your world. And we can say all day long that we don't do it, but we profile people. Everyone has their biases. Everyone has their personal weaknesses, what they're good at, what they're not good at. So to say that you like or hate somebody simply just because you don't like law enforcement, it's just a short-sighted...
No, this isn't just a matter of not liking law enforcement. This is a matter of looking at the objective data that we have of how law enforcement works, of how they protect each other over the public, how the law protects them over the public, how they're defended or they're protected from the consequences of their actions. I mean, shit, I saw one time, and this is an anecdote, but I saw one time a police officer turn on their lights, run a red light, and turn the lights back off. Straight up. Like, they just are above the law, or at least they think they are. And really, honestly, they're right, because we treat them as though they are. It's very rare that you see a police officer even lose their job, let alone get it convicted for a crime that they committed.
Way to look at it. So like the all cops are bastards people, you know, I don't get on that bandwagon at all, because I know many cops.
Oh, I know, because you're a liberal.
Really awesome dudes. Okay, but then also, look.
Okay, but like you just said about the pediatrician, they can be awesome dudes that you know personally, and then they can turn around and do really fucked up shit after that. You said that, not me.
I like to play devil's advocate. I've met some that are ate up, right? Now, they might need that same bit of reassurance, or that encouragement, rather, that you might give somebody in your platoon if you were ever in the military, right? It doesn't mean you want to kick the guy out of your platoon. Well, sometimes you might want to, but you want to make them a better person. So many of us, if we're being hard on law enforcement, if we're calling you out on some bullcrap, it's not that we're trying to tear you down and make you feel like you're belittled or anything. We're trying to make you a better person. We're trying to make you not a soup sandwich, okay? So I think that people need to take things with a grain of salt, right? Like,
a soup sandwich
in law enforcement, I'm sure is not easy. I can't speak for it. I've never been in law enforcement, okay? But I can only imagine, yeah, that's a tough job. And when you go home, you have to unpack all that. Everything that...
It's really not a hard job for what they do. Sorry. Well, I'll cede him this. We expect our police officers to do like multiple different jobs, right? I will cede that, because police officers are meant to be like marksmen, mental health professionals, or at least that, you know, that's the jobs we've tasked them with. And of course they're dog shit at it, because they're just taught, you know, first things first, get home alive. So that's why they end up shooting mentally ill people to death, and then going home at the end of the day and having dinner with their wives that they beat afterwards. That's why they end up kneeling on black people's necks, and then, you know, an entire riot has to happen before you're even charged with anything. Where was I going with that? I don't even know.
Happened to you that day. And people tend to get desensitized.
Oh yeah, it's not that hard of a
terror
job
that they see in their life every day.
But
and I think that your EMT...
It's not that hard of a job, but the fact that we have put all those tasks into that one job is on purpose, right? That's on purpose. That's by design. Because we don't want to pay for the proper training to be able to de-escalate the situations. Does policing attract abusive people, or does it make them abusive in your view? It kind of does both. It attracts abusive people because positions of power tend to do that. I don't think that policing is unique in that regard. Being a member of the military also attracts abusive people, quite frankly. The issue, though, is that the military's training is a lot more catered toward... It's a lot more catered toward actually following guidelines so that you don't hurt the general population. You know what I mean? There's also an element of brotherhood, protecting your fellow man. Whereas, you know, I do believe that a soldier would fall onto a grenade to protect the general population. I don't think a police officer would do that. So I think it's both. But I think the core issue is the training that police officers undergo. I think that needs to change. We make the Army the police? No. I think there is a fundamental difference. I mean, the Army is kind of the worldwide police in a way, but it's complicated. I'd really have to sit down and parse that one out myself.
In many situations, you're firemen. Okay, you're police officers, certainly soldiers, right? That's a lot to unpack. That's a lot to kind of look at yourself in the mirror and go, wow,
yeah,
what did I
unfortunately
just experience today, right? So kind of keep that in the
Let me make this clear. Firemen are based, EMS responders are based, fuck police officers.
Like, when you're going to judge a police officer's actions, whether it's good or bad, or no matter what side of the extremes that you're on in terms of what you believe in, we all have that hidden baggage, those hidden wounds, those hidden... you know, things that we're dealing with that, you know, you may not see it on the surface, right? But some people, you know, never are able to unpack all of that. Some people take that work, that life home with them, which is a terrible thing. I've seen it break down many a person who's in law enforcement. I've seen many of my friends turn to the bottle, and some of them I'm not going to say have committed suicide. However, there have been many that have turned to drink, have gone through divorces, and probably have had those kind of thoughts, right? So
I was losing my mind at videos about bad rich people. Nice, that sounds fun.
And many soldiers that I've ran into who have had a really, rough run in terms of their deployments, and it destroyed their marriage. So I guess.
Wow, I wonder why it destroyed their marriage. I mean, you can sit here and say that police officers have it hard, and that's why they turn to the bottle, whatever. But that makes the problem worse. It doesn't make it better. You know what I mean? Like that only speaks to more that we need to regulate this and crack down on what's going on in police training and in the line of work. Because clearly it's, I think that it does have mental health ramifications on these people. They are still human at the end of the day. And the fact that they get away with a lot of this stuff, their training is teaching them to, abuse the public essentially and treat them all as enemies until, guilty until proven innocent. And that fucks with you, So in that way, I guess I do have a little bit of sympathy for that. But at the same time, I'm outcome oriented. Right? I love saying that. I'm outcome oriented. So if the police are doing this much damage to the general public, I'm going to prioritize the health of the general public over the police because the general public are the ones that are the most innocent party and the ones who are most in danger. Does that make sense?
What I would really just try to articulate to people, whether you're an all cops are bastards type person or whether you're a thin blue line person, just remember that, everyone is fighting an individual battle. Right. And it's not fair to paint everyone with such a broad brush, especially when it's just based on not only your ignorance.
Okay, this is going to sound this is going to sound really rad lib right now. OK, but you wouldn't say we can't just paint all Nazis with a broad brush. You wouldn't say that. Nobody in their right mind would say that. Right. And the reason I bring up Nazis is to make an extreme example to give you guys an idea of the concept of painting a whole group with a broad brush is sometimes justified. Okay, in the case of Nazis, it certainly is. I believe in the case of conservatives, it certainly is in most cases. And in the case of police, because they're all trained the same way, they're all tasked with the same job, and they all protect the state and the status quo over the general population. So it is fair to paint them with that broad brush because it's accurate.
But in some cases, maybe you just have such
a
distinctive
pervert
view on what you think of law enforcement in general that you're just going to apply that blanket statement.
Yes.
But there are good ones. There are bad ones. There are terrible ones. There's ones that probably don't need to be in law enforcement, but they are because, think about it, maybe it's the only job they can get, right? Maybe they were in the right place at the right time. Maybe they're on a shift of people who's holding them together, right? Maybe their coworkers are the only things keeping them from going off the deep end, right? So you have to look at every situation with some nuance, right? Don't blindly support one person, but don't blindly hate them either.
If being a police officer is literally the only job that you can get and actually make a decent living, I can sort of empathize with that, but at the same time, once again, I'm going to prioritize the well-being of the general public over the well-being of individual police officers. And I think that ACAB is still justified in that instance because, you're still part of the dick of the state, the dick of the law. Where are my fellow conservatives at? Wait, what?
Let every individual tell you a story through their actions and through the things that you can observe, right?
Oh, do you consider yourself conservative?
We are human beings who observe things, and then we draw our conclusions based on what we observe, okay? And that's the way I try to be. I'm not trying to tell people how to do. Look, if you want to hate somebody or like somebody, do your thing. You want to fly the thin blue line flag, cool. Do your thing. I mean, I don't care.
Gross.
I'm just saying that the real truth, the real nuance is somewhere in the middle of those.
Depends on the definition.
Okay? Yeah. So, I'm not one of those people that blindly support or hate law enforcement. I view each action as an individual action that I can either support or not support. And I think that's the best way to be. It's not fair to paint people with such a broad brush. I mean, would you want to be...
Again, the problem is there's a pattern with police officers. Also because it scandalizes people. Oh, so you don't want to say that you're a conservative even though you are because it'll immediately put a target on you? It's kind of cringe.
As a gun owner, right? How many times us in the Second Amendment community, how many
was too busy to moderate? It went well. It went really well.
For the actions of a couple of bad people, right? You don't like being painted with that brush, do you? You think, well, man, that's unfair. I'm not that person. I didn't go shoot up that, school or do this or do that. And you see these terrible people commit these terrible crimes, and you think, man, if a good guy would have been there to stop them, and in many cases there are good people that stop crimes all the time, right? You think, well, I'm one of the good people that would want to step in and do the right thing. So give some of the other folks in the community the benefit of the doubt and go, you know what? Maybe some of them are really good people, right? But maybe some of them do deserve to get dragged through the mud a little bit.
Hold on. Is he saying, wait, I need to go back and watch that one more time.
I didn't go shoot up that, school or do this or do that. And you see these terrible people commit these terrible crimes and you think, man, if a good guy would have been there to stop them, and in many cases there are good people that...
Wait. The police are almost never the ones that stop this stuff. Like, they're certainly not the ones that are there on the scene. Remember the Club Q shooting? The guy that stopped him was an ex-military guy, not a police officer. Guess what the police officers did? They showed up. No, not even a good guy with a gun. No, it was a good guy without a gun. He literally stole the shooter's gun at Club Q and then beat him up in the face with it. Like he pistol whipped him. So the police officers showed up and all they did was they took one of the guys, the hero, I think, the guy who was holding the gun at the end of it. They took him, put him in a police car for an hour while he screamed to see where his family was at. That's all they did. Like they didn't do jack shit to stop the crime. Cops didn't stop Eric and Dylan. Eric and Dylan stopped themselves. That's true. Yeah, they fucked up the shooter real good. Club Q was a woman? No, it was an ex-military guy, and then it was also a trans woman who both beat him up. The ex-military man grabbed his gun, took him down, started beating him up in the face, and then he told the who he thought was a drag queen and ended up being a trans woman because he wasn't aware of the difference or whatever. He told her to, start stomping on his face, and she did. Pretty based.
Stop crimes all the time, right? You think, well, I'm one of the good people that would want to step in and do the right thing. So give some of the other folks in the community the benefit of the doubt and go, you know what? Maybe some of them are really good people, right? But maybe some of them do deserve to get dragged through the mud a little bit, and it's okay because at the end of the day, it's just like that. In the military,
it was nasty.
Your platoon of dudes, and you got a few.
The dude's face was
they come out
more patio than it was face.
Okay. It makes them stronger people. So there's a difference between just blatant hate and constructive criticism. But I feel like that constructive criticism also has some baggage, right? You got to stay in your lane too. I mean, it's important to know when you're in over your head and when you're not. When you have the ability to articulate a point really well in regards to a police action, maybe you've been involved.
Oh, I'm staying in my lane. As an RN, a registered nurse, I advocate for public health all the time. And part of public health is saying ACAB. Because my job happens to be pretty much the opposite of a police officer. Even when I worked at a rehab institution, I didn't call the police ever. I didn't even call the police when somebody broke into our building. We didn't know what was on him. He was clearly not in his right frame of mind. He was like preaching Bible verses and like not letting anybody get near him. And I didn't want to let him like just leave because he looked like he was mentally unstable. So I called EMS. They showed up and then they fucked up and let him leave. It's a different story. But the cops would have shown up and shot the guy straight up. So I'm glad that I did not call the cops because that man would have not been here with us probably. I do believe that.
Involved in something yourself or maybe...
So, I do advocate for public health and so I'm staying very much in my lane.
At the end of the day, I mean, anybody can be a Monday quarterback, right? And that's the thing. So try to kind of stay in your lane and keep a little nuance in what you're dealing with. And I think that when you unpack things in that way,
I think I am nuanced. That's the problem is you can be nuanced and say ACAB. I just did it. I can recognize that police officers as individuals when they're not in uniform can be good people. In fact, Heath did the same fucking thing when he was talking about his pediatrician who ended up killing somebody. That's nuance. Understanding that, yeah, he was nice in person. He was a nice guy to me. And then he ended up being a murderer. Okay, you can recognize that both things are true. I think that's fine.
The real truth is a lot more simple than you really think it is. If you just remove your ego from the situation, remove your own personal biases from the situation. I know it's hard.
God, he is so up his own ass, dude.
People don't like to think. They like to be spoon-fed.
He's huffing the centrist farts big time.
Just go, oh, well, I'm in the ACAB group or I'm in the thin blue line group. The reality is you just don't want to think for yourself. You want to apply a blanket statement without looking at the facts.
Oh God, no, stop. That's so irritating to me. Like, it's giving me a headache. I cannot stand that. Big brain centrism, everybody. What did he say? He said, you don't want to think for yourself. You just want to apply blanket statements. Yeah, fuck you, dude.
Apply a blanket statement.
I will apply a blanket statement. I'll apply a blanket statement to your fucking wife. How about that?
And looking at each situation objectively and on an individual basis. I think that's really the safest place to be. View every situation individually, gather the facts, gather the evidence, and draw your own conclusions. So I want to make this video. I thought it'd be kind of an interesting little talking point because I criticized a few people on Twitter earlier. And, some folks got into a little bit of a heated discussion over on Twitter about law enforcement this and law enforcement that. And I thought it would be an interesting talking point because there are a lot of different views on how people treat law enforcement. And
I don't trust the police with anything, rightfully so.
With the FBI, for instance, the CIA, the ATF, these alphabet agencies who, in recent years have really come under a lot of fire from people and have drawn a lot of criticism, and rightly so. Is that to say that there's not people within those organizations that are honorable and good people? I'm sure there are. Are they outnumbered 10-1 by people who absolutely hate our way of life? That's very well possible. But again,
yes, literally yes. It's not even 10-1. It's like more like 100-1. And those ones are usually singled out and fired.
To view the individuals
because they end up being whistleblowers because they are good people, and then they get booted from the force.
With these people. I'm just saying that things are not always what they seem. Everything that you read on the internet is sensationalized. You know, they cherry pick little pieces of certain articles to gaslight certain groups of people and get them mad at each other. The real truth really is something that you have to objectively come up with your own conclusion with a lot of research.
Objectively come up with your own conclusion? That doesn't make any sense. There is a single objective conclusion to draw. Like, that's not objectivity to say come up with your own conclusion. That's literally subjectivity. I hate this.
And try to get all the information in. So, you know, it is natural to have a disdain for these people because, you know, you
this guy's
on the news, all this stuff that's going on, these raids and all the things they're doing on the back end, you know, whether or not you support all of that is honestly irrelevant. Like, people have rights. And at the end of the day, you know, they're going to have to be held accountable for their actions, and they will be. Just like any cop that does a bad shoot is going to be held accountable.
Wrong. Literally wrong. Statistically wrong, actually.
For their actions.
They don't even get fired. They don't even get unpaid leave. They get fucking paid vacations after they, like, murk a black dude. It's a great question. How indeed? If we're not holding everybody accountable for every single thing that they do wrong, how indeed can we make society a better place? It's a good question.
You know, we have to ask higher of ourselves if we're going to ask higher of the people around us that we, you know, designate as the people that deal with these types of problems, okay? No matter how you look at it, I think that's just a good way to, you know, kind of consider it, you know, when you're looking at these situations. So thank you so much for watching today's video.
That was dog shit. Yeah, that didn't sway me at all. That just made me very angry and irritated. Because here's the thing, right? I'll watch idiots all the live long day, like the idiot we watched in the evolution video. And I think it's hilarious. It's so entertaining, and I will watch that all day. I just can't tolerate centrists, dude. I can't. They're so up their own ass. It's impossible to sit here and pretend like they have any good points. You know what I mean? Like they think they're so smart for like having this nuanced opinion. Oh, we're going to take the centrist opinion and be nuanced. Nah. And I know that you don't like the word nuance. I was told that by a goddamn centrist. They're the most condescending fucks on the face of the planet, and I cannot stand it. It's just so irritating. So here's what we do. Model America after the shore, and hey, where are y'all going? After the Shire? Isn't that a Lord of the Rings thing, right? I'll ask higher if I want someone to pass a joint my way. That work forces are the same that burn crosses. That's right. It's incredible that centrists can still even breathe while being so deep in their own asses. It's very bad. I'm disappointed that a viewer of mine sent me that thinking that like, oh, it's nuanced. It's great. But you know what? To be as charitable as possible, and you guys know that I love doing that. A lot of people think this way, and I used to be a centrist as well. You know, I had a very brief centrist stint where I was like, well, you need two wings to fly, and we right wing and left wing just need to get along and be together. And what? No. One side clearly wants good things, and the other side clearly wants bad things. And there's some nuance and in-between stuff, and people who don't understand everything that's going on, and I get that. But these centrists, man, they take the two sides of every single position. It's a wonder that, like, they don't look at, like, clear-cut murder cases and be like, well, I do see that the man was stabbed 10 times in his sleep, and it was over a cookie that was on the table. But have you considered cookie taste good? So maybe the man had a point. I am very smart. I have very high IQ. That's sometimes it's just that silly. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason to take both sides on everything. There's no reason to do that. Sometimes one side is just correct, you know? And I love saying that during debates. You know, they're like, well, that's just my opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. And I'm like, yeah, but the fucking difference is my opinion's right. Yours is wrong. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to hit like. If you haven't already, hit subscribe if you want to see more, and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I upload, and leave a comment for me, a lovely comment, letting me know your thoughts. Don't leave any centrist comments unless they're ironic. Otherwise, I'll be sad. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.